What's up guys, it's the Wandering Hermit back again for the 2018 YouTube Pagan Challenge. This video is about G for guilt. Now, in paganism, not just in paganism, but in any kind of discipline, in any craft, we're always faced with I call them the three terrors. I may have mentioned them in another video. One is fear, the other is ignorance, and the other is guilt. They do sometimes go under different names because really no matter what emotion or psychological state that you can think of, usually they can be grouped into one of three, maybe four categories. Today I'm just going to focus on guilt. Now, some of us have guilt for whatever reason, whatever it is that we've done in our lives that we feel guilty about, or haven't done even. Other people go through life without guilt at all. And let me tell you, those people are the luckiest of people, because guilt, I think, is actually one of the greatest enemies of personal growth and personal empowerment. Fear, we can act out of fear. Fear can be useful. Ignorance, some of the most powerful people in the world are also some of the most ignorant. However, guilt is one of those things that really stunts personal growth, be it spiritual or emotional. Now, when it comes to magic as a discipline, and when it comes to paganism as a philosophy, I think guilt is one of the greatest enemies that we as a species, as a collective consciousness, faces. Now, first of all, we have individual guilt. Now, individual guilt can be split into two categories from my standpoint, my analysis. The first is everyday guilt, everyday personal guilt, which you have none of, do you? She regrets nothing. Personal everyday guilt is for things that we do and say that are just generally, unsavory, or that we prefer to, forget about or not acknowledge or whatever. So, for example, if you say something unfair to a friend or a family member and you upset them and you feel guilt for that, that's something that a majority of people experience at some point or another in their life. And I know, I've got a lot of personal everyday guilt. I say and do things to people around me, I have done over the years anyway, that I've been very, very guilty about. And this is the first challenge for any practitioner of magical crafts or any serious discipline that involves self-development of any kind. Because first of all, you have to forgive yourself for your everyday guilt. You have to get rid of that everyday guilt because it weighs you down. I know that I went for many, many years bogged down by my own personal everyday guilt for things I'd said and done. And that everyday guilt leads to a feeling of unworthiness. Now, that feeling of unworthiness and self-admonishment is what stands between us and achieving our goals as a creative being. For example, my everyday guilt made me think that I was, unworthy of people to care for me. And I found it very difficult to accept that there were people in my life that cared for me. And because of that, I couldn't form emotional attachments for a long time. Because that everyday guilt and that self-admonishment also leads to fear of rejection and other such things. So the three terrors are always intricately linked to one another. One can always beget the next, and vice versa. So overcoming personal guilt is one of the first challenges that we face as individuals on our paths. So the best way to do that, in my experience, is to talk it out with the person that you feel guilty about upsetting, even if it's yourself. talk to yourself, actually have a dialogue where you take on a persona. You can act as if you're talking to a counsellor and ask yourself questions, or ask that person questions and they'll ask you questions, and you basically talk about what you did, why you did it, the fact that you feel guilty about it, you acknowledge it and you let it go. And when you have truly let it go, that personal guilt for whatever it is, you really feel it. Once it is said and done, you breathe a sigh of relief and you feel that weight lift. That is the first step. Now, the second form of personal guilt is assumed responsibility. Now, we can feel guilty for things that have absolutely nothing to do with us. So if a family member wrongs somebody else and you care about that person who's been wronged, but it's a family member that's wronged them, you feel personally responsible for that, and you suddenly feel the need to apologise for that, your family member's actions. I mean, I've had very similar experience myself. So again, this assumed responsibility, this guilt that we take on, which is technically somebody else's guilt, we take that on, and that adds to our baggage as well, and that stands in the way of us manifesting our dreams. Because the more you are guilty for things which you have either done or have nothing to do with you, the less worthy you feel of achieving greatness and attaining love and attaining wealth and attaining anything that you can dream. You feel as though anything that you can create isn't good enough for the world, because you yourself feel that you're not good enough for the world because of the guilt that you carry. So as magical beings, as creative beings, our second task is to let go of other people's guilt. And the best way to do that is to explain to the person whose guilt you're carrying, this is what you have done. I feel responsible for this, but I forgive you even if this other person can't. It's a case of forgiving the person whose guilt you're carrying, because by proxy you're forgiving yourself. And if they acknowledge that they've done wrong and they apologise for it, so much the better, because that acknowledges to you that they are in the wrong. And that triggers something in here and in here that tells you that guilt is not yours, you can let it go now. And again, as soon as that guilt goes, you breathe and it's gone. So, the second main category of guilt isn't personal guilt. It is collective guilt. Now, this is something which, surprisingly, not many people do experience. And I think if more people did experience collective guilt, the world would probably be a much better place right now. Because collective guilt comes from the guilt that we carry as individuals for something that either our forebears have done, our families have done to each other or to others in the past. Or it could be what a nation has done to another people. For example, I've been born and raised in England. Well, in Great Britain. I know that what the English did to the Irish and to the Scottish and to the Welsh has nothing to do with me. And I know that what the British Empire did to the rest of the world also has nothing to do with me. But I have also, despite that acknowledgement, carried what I would call the collective guilt of a nation. For a while I did feel personally responsible for the actions which took place 100, 200, 300 years ago, and way beyond that, up until, 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. It's ridiculous for us to be weighed down by such things. But at the same time, if people acknowledge the wrongs of humanity as a whole, not just for family or nation, but for our species and what we do to each other and what we do to the planet that we live on and to the other species that live on this planet with us. If we acknowledged that together and actively moved to correct it, we could overcome and let go of that collective guilt. That is the major challenge for our species right now, is acknowledging universally, every man, woman and child, acknowledging that we as a species are guilty and responsible for the destruction of the planet on which we live. Even if, I don't go around cutting trees down. I don't slash and burn. I don't pollute water supply. I mean, my lifestyle, I live in an average house in an average suburban area, quite a large estate. A lot of people live around here. I, as an individual, acknowledge that I contribute, even in the minutest way, to the pollution of the world's water supply, because the water that carries away sewage, the water that carries away, the dirty dishwater, our bath water, the water from the washing machine. I saw a video yesterday saying that microfibers from our clothes, polyester clothes, it's all plastic-based materials, and those microfibers get carried through, dumped into the water and create dead zones because, well, it's killing the fish naturally. I know I haven't consciously done that, and everyone else in the world knows they haven't consciously done that, but collectively we are responsible. So that collective guilt is something that, 1, we need to acknowledge, 2, we need to correct, and 3, we need to let go of, because then as a species we can evolve and step forward and become more spiritual beings rather than being bogged down in this mire of material illusion, where we think that we're cut off from nature. As soon as we acknowledge that we're part of nature and we're damaging nature, we can integrate back into it and reconnect and reconnect and realize that we've been part of nature all along. We've never been detached, and that will help us with our spiritual growth. So you got collective guilt, personal guilt. Personal guilt split into everyday guilt, and then assumed responsibility or assumed guilt. Now, all of these things, as I've said, pollute our thoughts. And they pollute our thoughts, they pollute our emotions. When our thoughts and emotions are polluted, our magic is polluted. And that doesn't just mean our craft work with altars and such things. It means the magic that we create through our very existence. Breathing in and out is a form of magic. So when even our breath is polluted, it creates more disharmony in the world. So when we're, obviously when you take that and put it into your actual altar work, your craft work and such things, if your thoughts are polluted, then it's going to seep into the magic you're trying to create. So if you're trying to manifest something for yourself, your own polluted thoughts, because of the guilt that you're carrying for whatever reason, is going to seep in and corrupt that magic. So it could either backfire if your guilt is great enough, or it might simply go awry. It might not manifest the way you wanted it to. In fact, it may end up benefiting you in some way, but it may end up benefiting others more. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's great when magic helps others. We should all aim to help each other. But say, for example, you're trying to manifest wealth for yourself because you're hard up, you're behind on bills, you're trying to bring more abundance into your life, a new job opportunity, or a windfall, or something like that, just to see you through to your next paycheck. If you carry guilt, your subconscious thought is, I am not worthy of this. I do not deserve to actually receive this abundance. I don't deserve to receive this divine help. And as a result, you stop your own magic from working. And as I say, in extreme cases, it could mean that the next door neighbour wins the lottery, and you have to sit and watch as they, celebrate whilst you're struggling. That then becomes a lesson to you. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You could be that guy or girl. Why are you sitting here wallowing in self-pity and guilt that more often than not is easily let go of and easily overcome, or more other times isn't even your fault? when magic backfires as a result of guilt, it backfires hard. I saw a video on Asbjørn Torvald's channel a couple of months ago now about his first money spell that he did that went wrong for this exact reason. One, he felt he didn't really need or deserve the money. He had this guilt in his mind. Should I be doing a money spell? Is this right to do a money spell? That guilt about wanting to ask for money. He said it himself in the video. He hates borrowing money from anybody. I hate borrowing money from anybody. I absolutely despise being in debt. Find myself in debt more often than I'd like. And that's because of my own mindset. Now, in Asbjørn's case, because of that guilt, couple that with a slight slip up in wording when he was doing his ritual, he ended up getting what he wanted, but with a serious repercussion, which you'll see if you watch his video, which I would recommend because he's got some great content. But in the same way, when I've tried to manifest something for myself and I've thought, do I deserve this? Do I need this? Is this right for me to ask for this? It's backfired to the point where I end up worse off than I was before. And instead of guilt, what we should instead practice is G for gratitude. I'm going to end the video with this thought for you. You may be in dire straits. If you were in dire straits, you'd probably be rich from royalties. Yeah. I wish I was in dire straits. But say, for example, you are in great financial difficulty. You're in a flat or a house that's fallen apart. You may be in danger of being kicked out. You hate your job. You feel as though you're not going anywhere in life. You're not pursuing your ambitions. You want to be an artist, or you want to be a dancer, a musician. And you spend so long worrying about that and thinking, is that selfish? Do I deserve to pursue these? Do I deserve to have all my dreams come true? It's going to get worse. If you instead sit and think, my house has fallen apart, but I have a house. I have a roof over my head. I'm sheltered from the winter cold and the rain. I have food in my cupboards. It may be canned food, but it's food nonetheless. I'm not starving to death. I have people who care for me. I don't get to see them as often as I'd like. I wonder if they think I don't care about them. But I do, and they know I do, really. But at least there's someone there to think that. It's not that I don't have any family. I hate my job, but I have a job. There are some people who have none of these things. No roof over their head, they're sleeping on the street. No family to care for them, they've all died, moved away, disowned them, whatever. They have no job, because no one will hire them. They have no food. They have to beg, or they have to rummage in bins, or they have to steal. People in the third world have it even worse off. At least we have relatively mild weather. It rains, it's cold, but at least there's no famine. There is always someone in the world worse off than we are. So rather than focusing on guilt for what we have done or haven't done, guilt for wanting more than what we have, we should focus on gratitude for what we do have, because when you are grateful for what you have, you open yourself up to receive more. And when you receive more, you have more to give. And when you give and are grateful for what you have, that multiplies tenfold. So, let go of guilt, practice gratitude, and give freely. These are the 3 G's, and with that, I will end this video here. So until my next video, I wish you all much love and many blessings. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share it, comment below if you have any thoughts, and I will see you in my next one. Bye for now.